And young women, if you dress, you are magnifying this problem by becoming pornography.
Travis Wayne Goodsell, Abraham, chapter 1, starting in verse 8. Now at this time it was the custom of the priest of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to offer up upon the altar which was built in the land of Chaldea, for the offering unto these strange gods, men, women, and children. Skipping to verse 10. Even the thank offering of a child did the priest of Pharaoh offer upon the altar which stood by the hill called Potiphar's Hill, at the head of the plain of Olai Shem. Now this priest had offered upon this altar 3 virgins at one time, who were the daughters of Onita, one of the royal descent directly from the loins of Ham. These virgins were offered up because of their virtue. They would not bow down to worship gods of wood or stone. Oh, it had nothing to do with sex. Therefore they were killed upon this altar, and it was done after the manner of the Egyptians. And so, it came to pass that the priests laid violence upon me, that they might slay me also, as they did those virgins upon this altar. And that you may have a knowledge of this altar, I refer you to the thumbnail picture at the beginning of the video. The first recorded instance of actual human sacrifice probably Native American Indians of Central and South America, also. No, Greeks are older than that tribe. But in the old world, it was the Greeks. Stories of King Minos on the Isle of Crete, reports of virgin sacrifices. And it was the Greeks who not only had their sacrificial burnings, that when they took over the Jerusalem temple, they tore down the Jerusalem temple's altar and in 10 days built it back up again and began offering the Greek offerings on the new Greek altar in the Jerusalem temple. But they also started the Greek practice of prostituting women in the temple, paying women to have sex. And so, no, it is not the oldest profession. And so, this story by Joseph Smith is not a literal translation. It's to assist in the knowledge of what the Jews called of the Greek takeover as the abomination of desolation. Refers to the burning of another religion's rituals, offerings in the Jewish temple, including the prostitution of women. And so this is why Christians rejected the birth of Mary, or the gospel of Mary, the mother of Jesus, because she was given to the temple after she was weaned from a barren mother, following the same pattern, and was bought by Joseph at the temple, assuming she was still a virgin, and she was not. And so the Christian church did not like that narrative because it didn't conform and comply to their first creed of Christianity. And so we do not have it in the Christian compilation of Jewish scriptures. And this abomination of desolation had taken place back with Brigham Young. And this is a sensitive subject that nobody wants to learn the truth and just has their own personal spiritual witness feelings about, to justify it as true. And everybody's wrong. Still Mormon interviewed a linguistic scholar who has spent since 1982, I think he said, 81, 82, focusing his whole entire career on documents from 1820s to 1830s. And so he rightfully claims to be the authority on the handwriting of Joseph Smith. And he has the whole collection of Joseph Smith's handwriting, he claims, and had the original Joseph Smith's 1830 Book of Mormon that contained some of Joseph Smith's annotations. And on page 128 in the Book of Jacob, Joseph has been identified as having written at the top of the page, one wife. And then in the text, where it talks about, save it were one wife, Joseph Smith makes a little C note and then puts a big old line after the semicolon after wife, highlighting one wife. The church, still to this day, with the recent publication of the Saints book, continued to insist that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. And in the Saints books, they also throw in the confession that Joseph Smith was also an adulterer, having sex with other men's wives. I don't know if any of you know your scriptures well enough to know that adultery is a sin. It's one of the 10 commandments of the Jews that even Christians accept, even though they turn the first two into Jesus rather than the Jewish Christ. But both Jews and Christians believe that you shouldn't commit adultery. And so when you look at Christian examples, specifically of televangelists, you see that they do not interpret adultery as the preacher husband watching his wife, one wife, having sex with the pool boy. That's not considered adultery whatsoever. Nope, not at all. And so as I grew up in Southern California after moving from Michigan, having been born and first lived my nativity in Northern California, born at Berkeley, Alameda County, California Hospital. We had a an apartment in Oakland while my dad went to Berkeley to get a master's in some kind of financing or business. I think it was business at the University of Utah, where he met my mom, who was working there as a dental assistant, because that was the highest per capita of returned missionaries. She logically moved to Utah so that she can get married. For Southern California, there just wasn't the options. BYU, Hawaii, she claims her parents were racist and would never have allowed her to marry a Polynesian or Hawaiian. I don't know how many Polynesians live on Hawaii, or if it's just all Hawaiians, or what the population of Mormons was on Hawaii. Definitely the Polynesian Cultural Center, I think, was there. I think that was an early development there. I can't remember. I'm not going to look it up. And so my mom was forced to marry sailors who came into port. Or not marry. Date. And Mom leaves out information as well as claims to be ignorant about sexual natures of both men and women. As she was a big Elvis fan, having seen the movie now, I'm scarred for life about what my mom would have done. And yet, she was an extremist, like the church prophets, of sexual behavior and abstinent sexual behavior, which is sexual abuse. And yet, I saw in her marriage with my dad that whenever she believed she was right on an issue, they would have to go up into their master bedroom, fight it out, and then in the end, my mom loses. I would find out later when I would go get my endowments in the temple. And here are the covenant paths in the Los Angeles temple, May 6th, 1988, 9. And learned that Dad always pulled the obedience card on her. And so my mom had to obey my dad. When they had a disagreement, my dad knew he would always win. Those who got married after 1991 in the temple do not know of this. And if they do know, it's only because other family members or fellow Mormons had told them about it, and they believed it. If I were to tell you, you wouldn't believe me. And I don't understand why this position exists concerning Joseph Smith. Because those who stay Mormon, for the most part, believe that polygamy is God's way for marriage, for celestial marriage. Whereas the Mormons who eventually leave believe that polygamy is wrong. And everybody, regardless of whether they stay or go, believe the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that claims that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. Even though the latest new documentation by Joseph Smith says that he wasn't. And so there's the two camps of false dichotomy of those who believe that polygamy is acceptable and those who believe it isn't acceptable. But both sides believe that Joseph Smith was practicing it. And only those few of us who actually do some checking learn that Joseph Smith was framed and blamed. It's not just me. There are a few others that know that Joseph Smith was not a polygamist, such as his son, who had his 1830 Book of Mormon. But his son named the church wrong. But he was just a little boy when his daddy died. So he had to wait until 1860 before he decided to start his own church and claim succession from lineal father to son. And so, yeah, obviously that's not the true succession way, because Brigham Young did it right as the president of the 12 to hand out seed about the Book of Mormon. And yeah, Brigham Young was an adulterer, raping the women of the men that would be converted into the church. Section 117 exposes Brigham Young's Danite practice as they use Revelation's Nicolaitan band as the coding for their Danite band. And if you saw the video I did covering the Nicolaitan band and what Christians say they did, which made them abominable, and to have the Danites in section 117 claim that they are the Nicolaitan band, it just sends shivers down my spine. In Michigan, went to kindergarten and first grade at Miller Elementary School. And in kindergarten, I had a neighbor on Paul Revere Boulevard named Beth. Cute little girl. And one day, as I walked out of the house to walk to school, Beth, likewise, was walking to school. She was on the other side of the street. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. She waved, said hi, and I came over, walked across the street, jaywalking, to join her on the other side, and we were walking to school together. And we got about 2 or 3 houses down when older boys, 2 of them, came up from behind us. The one grabbed Beth in a big arm lock behind her and lifted her up off the ground. The boys were both laughing hysterically the whole time. Beth immediately began screaming in terror. The other boy bent down and pulled down her, it's a little girl's leotards that are also covering up the underwear. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And also pulled down her panties. Beth was freaking out. I was in shock, frozen, paralyzed. I didn't understand what was going on. I'm just a kindergartner. And her fear caused her to lose her bowels. At which point the boys, laughing hysterically, were grossed out, thought that was even funnier, and put her back down and ran off to school. Beth ran home. After I don't know how long, I finally came out of my shock, all by myself there on the street, on the sidewalk, and walked to school. And I don't know if I saw her at school that day or if it was the next day or some days after. But during recess time, we were allowed to go into the forest between the ball court and the school and climb the trees. And I remember sitting up in the tree and seeing Beth with her girlfriend on another tree, and they were talking, and it was just as if nothing ever happened for Beth. The only problem is I never saw her after that kindergarten year. And it's sad that my dad threw away most of my stuff. The pictures that you do see of my childhood was because my mom had salvaged one of my dozens of photo journals. My dad literally tried to erase me from history, as the church was doing the same thing at the same time. There was a purge to erase me from history. Because of that experience, when my mom would get the new Sears catalog, she would set it out on the kitchen table, and this began in Placentia, or in Michigan, and then continued on when we moved to Placentia, in which we were to go through the Sears catalog, as my mom had gotten the new update for the Christmas year, and go through and tear out pages of furnishings, toys, and make a collage. At first we had to use glue until tape was invented. I'm sure Scotch tape was invented, but it was more expensive. I just remember using both glue and tape for those projects. And it was in Placentia as I was in between 4th grade and 5th grade, that summer, when I hit puberty. And that's the time when my mom deleted anything that I did after that. I no longer existed in my mom's mind. Because for my mom, she was a religious sexual abuser, an extremist. She believed that puberty is a sin and of the devil. Because the church prophets tell us that we have to suppress it, that it is of the devil. That we aren't supposed to have the feelings, we aren't supposed to have the thoughts, which are specifically designed in humans for the sole purpose of perpetuating the human race. Without it, we couldn't do it. Nonetheless, the prophet's command, my mom obeyed extremistly. And so, like Elvis ceased to exist in my mom's mind with his drug years. In her mind, Elvis died before he actually died of a drug overdose. This is what the church prophets did to her. Her childhood crush, of whom she would love to throw her underwear at him with, considered him dead to her when he began doing drugs. And likewise, her firstborn, birthright blessing son was now dead to her simply because he hit puberty at 10 and a half years old. And so, I began noticing that the Sears catalog had these strange creatures in them. Females doing fashion try-ons to advertise for clothes and underwear. This was back when the Sears catalog had no problem showing little girls and boys in their underoos and other underwear. Which now, thanks to Christians and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is considered child porn. But that trauma with Beth gave me an empathy towards all women, especially women who are abused. And so I began wanting to do women's fashion design. My sisters, for Christmas, would get fashion plates to share. And they really didn't play with it. You know, a couple of token times, but then they're bored. Me, however, knock, knock, knock. Can I play with fashion plates? Fine, but you have to do it right here at our door as we close the door. And when you're done, you need to knock and give it back. Okay. That was probably my favorite toy. Just lying there on the ground at my sister's door, doing the fashion plates. But I couldn't let my mom know. She would think I was gay. Didn't understand that if she had helped foster that in me, that I could have then gone on and gotten a career in New York at a starting salary of $100,000 a year. So says the first wife that I had. She was taking fashion design at Rick's College. And I took her away from it, ruined her life. Bleep you. I had to pay for her grants, or her student loan money. So don't blame me. You were the one that tricked me into marrying you. Anyway. And so, yes, my desire for women's fashion, the covering up of Beth, was mixed with my puberty. I'm so conflicted. As yes, priesthood conference after priesthood conference, Aaronic priesthood lesson after Aaronic priesthood lesson, we are threatened to suppress our biological sexual natures. And we can't. We can't. And this was also mixed with the homophobic 80s, where the church came out and said that if your child exhibits apostasy symptoms, it means they're gay. Bring them to us and we'll electrocute them with conversion therapy. My uncle would then come out of the closet claiming that he must have been born that way because he always wanted to stay at home with grandma doing woman's work rather than going to do the slave work on the farm with older brother and dad. So he must be gay. And abandoned his Barbie doll wife and his 3 Barbie doll girls to become a manager at Blockbuster Video and live with a boyfriend because Obama hadn't allowed gay marriage yet with Prop 8 in California that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would tamper in that election with. Illegally tamper. And so my years spent in Southern California was among white supremacist Christian nationalist peers. And because of my experience with Beth, I did not laugh at what they thought was funny as to what they wanted to do to women, let alone everybody else. Gays, those from the southern border, blacks. I was literally traumatized by the violent, graphic abuse that they wanted to do. And now that I'm watching Handmaid's Tale, she's tame. And I'm still traumatized by her show. God. I just have to curl up on a ball in the bed and hope I can get through the episode. After episode, after episode, after episode. And so now that we're in the final end of the latter days, I'm repeating information because YouTube is suppressing my channel from other viewers, and those who do come are just looky-loos for the most part, or new people every time. I probably should have checked to see who was new, or the percentage of new people to my videos versus the repeat viewers. I was just disappointed by the audience by age and gender. Nobody below 25 years of age view my channel in the last 28 days. Only 1% of men between 25 to 34, which the church now turned you into young adults, watch my channel, which means one boy that age, and then 4.8 males for 35 to 44, no women. And my age range is the second highest female audience. But I don't hear from them. I know Idaho chick comes and goes when she pleases. She's around that age range, I think. I know, she told me. But nonetheless, it's not all her. There are others of you my age who are listening, as I'm nearing the age of the category above me, which are your Strengthening Church Members Committee of the 70 who dominate watching my channel. And apparently they're not learning from my videos. They're supposed to realize I'm for Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. They need to leave the church because they are being used like the handmaids to commit the crimes and abuses and penalties upon Mormons who are apostates. But again, very few women of that age watch my channel. And so because of my pre-1991 experience, the consistent dominant viewers of my channel, both male and female, are the 65 and up. They know what I'm talking about. Even though it may be uncomfortable for them to hear it, even though they're confused as to why I would put pictures and not give narration over the pictures in the beginning of my videos. They're confused as to why there's no volume when there's text at the beginning of my videos. Nevertheless, my biggest audience, other than the Strengthening Church Members Committee, which apparently is a massive committee. It must be the whole General 70 who are in this committee. Dear God. I mean, so sad. But in comparison, my conference stats for this year, for October, shows that I had one woman from the 18 to 24-year-olds, two women, 25 to 34-year-olds, three women, for the 35 to 44-year-olds, and then my age and the age above me are close to even. As still the Strengthening Church Members Committee dominate, but more for the 65 and older. This is sad. This is really sad that the younger generations don't know of the church's blatant previous abuse from 1991, before 1991. And that Mormons now believe, as they do with post-1978, that the church is not that way anymore. Same thing with polygamy. Oh, we don't do any polygamy. And yet, Mormon women, because I heard you in the younger singles ward and the older singles ward, can't fool me. You told me. You know that it's coming back for the millennium. So says Bruce R. McConkie, Mormon doctrine. And Mormon women, especially in the older singles ward, want Lucifer's plan of happiness to be instilled in the church, to force them to be put with a man, even though he's old, creepy, wrinkled, fat, balding, gray, like me, getting in there. Supposed to have my midlife crisis sometime. Instead, it was the church who had a midlife crisis with me. They had a crisis with my midlife. But yeah, it was just heart-crushing to hear woman after woman say that she wished agencies could be taken away so that she can finally get a husband. And then sigh and say, well, Benson promised us that no blessings would be withheld from us if we're faithful. Despite being in a singles ward, the biggest in the valley, with the most eligible return missionaries, that's why my mom moved to Utah for, and yet women just are not getting married. And they're going on to be spinster single cat ladies for the rest of their life. And yes, they would even talk about the miracle of, despite menopause, still having a baby because it was done to the literal history character wives in the Bible. I just want to cry. And then they're talking with me face to face. I'm single, they're single, and they're telling me to my face, why do I always pick the bad guys, the bad boys? You do know you're talking to a single, available, eligible bachelor. Who deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, knows that Joseph Smith is true, and likewise the Book of Mormon. And women kept talking about, I'm not their type. Male, single, available, returned missionary. That's not your type? Quit changing the definitions of words. It confuses guys. We get the wrong clue as a result. Because I got the hint that you didn't want me. And I didn't understand that they were waiting for me to do all the work. That women in this church are told, you need to sit on the couch and wait for the guy to call you up and say, will you marry me? What? It ain't gonna happen that way. I mean, yeah, sort of for my dad and mom. I graduated, I'm going to Berkeley. You coming with me? They only knew each other because he was their home teacher. And so my mom hated his guts. She wanted nothing to do with him. But he's a returned missionary, and after one home teaching, when he talked about genealogy, he left behind his genealogy at their apartment. And so my mom saw that he had left it behind, and she claims that the still small voice, which you younger kids have no clue what it is, but you younger kids apparently aren't watching, so it's only the elderly who know what I'm talking about. Told her, one day you'll be doing his genealogy. And so she responded to the Spirit, not on your life, I'm only going to be doing mine and my husband's genealogy. And so eventually it clicked in her head that that's what she thought she was supposed to do. But she never did like him. She was an alt-right Republican of Nixon's. My dad was a Democrat. But my mom was able to convince him that the Nixon Republicans are the same as the pre-World War II Democrats. And so my dad easily converted to become an alt-right Nazi Republican. Preparing for the latter days and the takeover of America with handmaids. And so, yeah, they would go out on dates to a conference. As a bet to see who would be right about whether Benson was going to confirm whose ever side of opinion of the church's doctrine. And then Benson would always disappoint them and never talk about it in his conference talk. Both of them have church history libraries. So, but yeah, the reason why my mom moved to Utah was because as a teenage girl in Ventura, California, at her dad's mansion in the hills that are now burned up from a fire some few years ago. I remember hearing about it in the news, and I'm going, wait a minute, that's where... And so I checked, and Google Maps only showed a newly developed subdivision that had plowed over my grandpa's mansion. And so, yeah, but all of those houses apparently burned down with that fire that hit that one year. Nevertheless, they had a pool, among many other things. And missionaries in the area, I think it was the APs, one of the missionaries had a medical condition that the doctor prescribed getting exercise. And because of the leg damage or something like that, swimming was a good exercise as opposed to running or other kinds of leg strenuous exercises. And so with my grandpa having a pool, they traveled to their home on a regular basis to utilize the pool. And so my mom, as a teenage girl, hot for Elvis, has returned missionaries staying at their house so that they can use the pool. And she again believes that the Spirit told her that that's the kind of man you want to marry, a returned missionary. And so in California, there were none. There were those who got sent home early, and there were those who refused to go, whether it was because of sin or just didn't go. And so that's why she moved to Utah, to be near the highest per capita of returned missionaries. And so, yeah, it's a weird human behavior that when you're giving more options, it becomes more difficult to select one. Whereas if you're limited on options, it's easier to select one. It's a very interesting phenomenon. Nonetheless, it was also sad, as I get frozen here. So, yeah, the employee is still working his shift, and we witnessed that he started his shift at 5 in the morning. And so, potentially 11 a.m., another hour from now, will be the end of his shift. And then I can do videos unmolested. It is tragic that when a woman who's sexually abused severely instead of the different behaviors from different women affected by the same sexual abuse, like in The Handmaid's Tale, the different women respond and react differently. As the one was at the beginning when she was kidnapped, thought that the whole thing was a big joke, didn't want to take it seriously. She was there against her will, and then they broke her. And she mentally lost it. And so, yes, most women in the show are said to commit suicide because they just can't handle it. Whereas others have to become numb as they are forced to participate in criminal activity, to do the violent murders of those that are claimed to be violators of their Christian law upon everybody. And so that's why it was a cheering stand up in the theater moment when they refused to stone one of their own. They said no. Which reminds me of Planet of the Apes. Caesar said no. From San Francisco. I still weep that after Trump's inauguration in 2017, even though he tried to do a fake picture of the event, that women began year after year to do the annual march, which culminated in the Me Too movement in 2018, wasn't it? Black Lives Matter protesters were 2020. But both of them got suppressed and stopped. And instead of accomplishing anything, America just got worse for both groups and other groups. Women lost Roe v. Wade and did not protest sufficiently to demand that back. That was in our Constitution in the 14th Amendment, Section 1. And SCOTUS just stripped them of it, violating their oath of office, oath to the Constitution. And we, the people, did not hold them accountable for what they did, for what Trump did, for what MAGA did, for what Congress did. We are not holding them accountable. And there are consequences. I'm still hearing the ignorance of Democrat attorney generals and governors of the Democrat Party who are bragging that they're going to be the first to sue Trump when he takes office. They don't get it. Trump doesn't play by the rules. Trump doesn't follow the law. Have you forgotten his first term? We all know in his second term, he believes SCOTUS gave him a free pass to do whatever he wants. Because all of his crimes, he's gotten away with. Except for Jean Carroll. I think that's her middle name, Jean. But yeah, the one where his sexual assault, he has to pay now. As he again continued to defame her in public after losing. She won. He has to pay up. But he's about to be president. So just like Google search, who's supposed to sell, he doesn't. He doesn't pay up. Trump never pays his bills unless he's forced to. But then he always does something criminal to get his money back. Just like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, suing their own insurance company to make their money back from the loss from the SEC violations. Dear God. And so yes, you women are the ones who need to be listening to my channel and following me. But you believe that because I'm a guy, that I just don't understand you. That I don't know what's best for you. And specifically, you're right, I don't. All of you are different. But generally, I know that you're not supposed to be abused. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is abusing you. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and sexually. And you're behaving exactly like a person in abuse, specifically women, act like. You're in denial, you blame yourself, and you let the abuser be presented in a heavenly light that they don't deserve. And that I do not understand. I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a guy that I know that when somebody's abusing me, I don't blame other people. I blame the guy who abused me. Or the woman. Because I had 2 failed marriages and thousands of dates of abusing women who abused me. But I don't blame all women. I still have hope that there's a woman out there who's not abusive. Somewhere out there. But yeah, after, well, I was watching chick flicks as early as high school, listening to country music, not having the record so that I can play it back so that I get everything back, or that the singer gets everything back. You don't know the joke? Okay, never mind. Had to do with the Christian fear that playing the records backwards had you worshiping Satan and committing orgies. And so country music, play it backwards, country singer gets all of his stuff back from the woman who left him. So, anyway, we're over an hour now, aren't we? Wasn't it 53 or 54 minutes when I was cyber attacked by the Mormon employee who is bored for New Year's, got nothing better to do than to abuse me. See, he doesn't get it. He's obviously a computer geek, and I was a jock, And so now that he's a career cyber terrorist, and I'm long since retired from sports, he assumes that I am just like all the other jocks that pantsed him and hung him by his underwear on the flagpole. I was not that guy. Both Mormon women don't understand I am not the typical guy. Mormon men don't understand I'm not the typical apostate. I'm trying to save all of your lives, but more so women, because of the abuse focused on women in this church. All of the rape kits that were piled up before the Me Too movement, forcing Salt Lake City to process them. Over 3,000 rape kits just ignored and piled up, unprocessed. Just heartbreaking. The church, in closing, if they were to get their way and get their kingdom back, means that the United States collapses. And it will under Trump, if he gets in. We only have one day left to find out if George Albert Smith is a true or a false prophet. If the nukes are going to get us. But the church will restore polygamy. And currently, there are more men, even though most of them are apostates, than women. And as such, there's not enough women for the men to be righteous in the celestial kingdom with polygamy. I don't think you understand the danger that's coming. Because the church leaders are obviously righteous, they say so. Why would they lie? And thus, priesthood leaders will be the ones to get polygamous wives. All other men won't. And so you women who have been given your agency, as you suppose, to choose one of your peers for all these decades, since the United States was big, bad, and mean and told the church to stop, you have wasted the days of your probation in their eyes. You are not choosing the right. Even though you're wearing your CTR rings, even though it's on the pinky finger. And your Mormon medallions, so that you're giving off the appearance of righteousness when inside you're abused. You don't understand. Your agency is gone, and this will be more detrimental to the younger girls down to 11 years of age than it will be to the older singles who are near menopause, who are okay with Lucifer's plan of happiness to take away agency so that they can have a marriage partner, and are willing to be number 53 in the harem with no relationship with the guy. This is what I see in both The Handmaid's Tale and in Big Love, about a fictional polygamous family. It's increasingly complicated to have a relationship with more than one wife. And the more wives you add, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to have a relationship with a woman. And as my peers instructed me on, they have no interest in a relationship with a woman. And then you got the different types of white supremacist Christian nationalists, of the ones that are okay with having sex with multiple women and not having a relationship with one, and those who want a relationship but cheat because the woman likewise being ordered to abstain from their biological nature, require a man to pursue other women in adultery to satisfy his biological nature, as white supremacist Christian nationalists are told they can't masturbate. Likewise, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that it's a sin. So says the story of Tamar. No, it's not what the moral is. You missed the point. There's something more scary involved. Anyway. And so, yeah, there's going to be some obvious problems. Mormon men are going to be upset. And the leaders will just murder you, break you. Mormon girls, break you. Getting the compliant women in the harem to peer pressure you to conform and comply, to be the narcs, to make sure you conform and comply. You don't see the dangers coming. You don't understand consequences. The Mormon men who helped this church, or members of the 70, they'll likely lose their wives to the prophets. Brigham Young claimed Joseph Smith did it to Mormon wives. Joseph Smith didn't. It was the Danites, the Nicolaitan band. And you can't just assume that having a token extra wife is sufficient. Brigham Young's documents say no. The more you have, the more righteous you are in their mind. And so they ain't gonna stop with one extra wife. And as the wives in the show are barren and are because of some disease or something like that, that I'm getting concerned may have actually been caused upon them. But we're not there yet, I guess. That's how they justified using the handmaids. And you've got Nelson and Oakes, whose second wives they've never had children with. And so if the millennium happens in the coming day, and they're still alive as leaders, they will begin adding wives, as their first wife is unable and never had born a child to either of them. And they'll have to watch as their husband rapes other Mormon girls and they bear them children. I know that this is a sore subject for women, as I saw it in the older singles ward. Women realizing that time is running out. And there were women who were rejected by Mormon men, as they supposed, and would marry the sons of men rather than the sons of God, fulfilling Joseph Smith's translation from the Selections of Moses right before the flood. Joseph Smith is true. He knew. He knew. And I've told you, mostly at the end of videos like this one, that my Zion design, I'm hoping and praying for an equal number of men and women. The women that are able to bear children, anyway. Because I know the dangers of polygamy. I fear and dread what is coming. I saw it in the Bronx on my mission. 52 different countries, and it was filled mostly, we're talking 98% women. Single mothers. As even the branch presidency didn't have enough men to fill all the positions needed. Thus, as an elder, we had to step in to help fill in the gaps. That would just be a complete nightmare for me. It would crush me that if we do get to go to Zion and the bishops bring those who wanted to come to Zion, and it's dominantly women, I would just be crushed. Because there's no way I can have relationships with more than one. And that's all I've wanted my whole life. Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted one girl from my childhood, which was only Laura Baker in Placentia. Nobody in Corona. To be a childhood sweetheart. That we'd be best of friends, do all stuff together as kids growing up, and I go on my mission, I come back, we get sealed in the temple, and we live happily ever after, have a billion kids, and grow old together. Nope. Not to be. And so, having all of the failures, I couldn't, I can't do it. I mean, obviously I'd have to. But I'm not going to like it. And yes, when my cycle, my puberty hits, sure, all of a sudden I become a different person. But it is short-lived, even though it's repetitive. So there's space in between, and that's when I want a relationship. And I know women really don't want that as much as the older singles ward sisters claim that they wanted their agency taken from men and women. But anyway, we've got some dangerous times coming, and nothing is standing in the way to stop it, and the consequences are going to be ugly. Because the initial war, civil war in America, unless Americans are just apathetic so that they just roll over and take it, will be destructive and deadly in and of itself, as the men will rape any woman that's in their way, and then murder you and then rape you again. I told you, my childhood peers traumatized me on what they wanted to do. And lo and behold, it's in the Book of Mormon. Lo and behold. And it almost got banned in the state of Utah. Just, how do you get a woman who's been abused to be free of her abuser? Because even if the church were to be locked up like Warren Jeffs was, the FLDS women still adore him. His wives still believe he's the true prophet of Jesus, son of Adam. And that's going to be Mormons. They deny that that's what would happen. We're not FLDS, we're the true church. Our prophets will never be thrown in prison. Ours is the true sex crimes of Jesus. Rape baby Jesus. Women have their bodies designed to understand Alma chapter 32, starting in verse 28. Likening the word unto a seed. Women know that they ain't going to get pregnant unless a man's seed gets in their womb. And then they will know whether the seed is good or bad by whether they throw up in a couple of weeks. Morning sickness. The woman then knows she's pregnant. And then her nipples get tender. And they start to grow. And then she starts craving battery acid. Drano. I actually got the cravings. Not for battery acid and Drano, though. It was mustard and carrots and mustard and pickles. Could have been just because I wasn't eating like I should have. But anyway. And so yeah, then your belly starts to grow. You know you got pregnant. Your faith is now dormant. Yep. That one moment of ecstasy has gotten you pregnant. You now know. It's not a spiritual witness feeling. That was the orgasm at the beginning. You're now throwing up, and now you're getting bigger. You now know. Your faith is dormant now, but you're not done yet, because you still have to have faith that the baby is going to sprout. And then the baby has to grow into a tree producing seed to pass on to other women. It's the same vegetative process. It's a universal law of nature. Don't listen to Darwin, that dumbass, racist bigot. So, and yeah, I tried to tell you also, your bodies are the map to Zion. And the church has been wanting you to cover it up and hide it. Because your body is porn. It's evil. It's the looks that kill. We're using that. Looks that kill. So, alrighty. It's a new year. We're all gonna die. Roadmap. Hello? Moses parts the waters, has the Ark of the Covenant go first, and then the house of Israel, the seed of Jacob, gets placed in the promised land. Then they grow, and the baby comes out on dry ground. It's both for both conception and birth, same process. And then the baby has to go to the mountain tops of Zion and New Jerusalem to be nourished. Can't show you the picture because YouTube will flag it as porn. They're legally not allowed to do that. They need to leave women alone. But they ain't gonna stop. Neither is Google, because they're waiting for Trump that will allow them to do whatever they want and punish me, because who's going to stop me? Who's going to stop them from hurting me? So I may have until the 21st. I know the Mormon is drooling. You can see him today. He doesn't want to wait.